Hello, and today we are going to be creating a tier list for all of the super duper rare cards and recesses. So, as you probably know, if you've played the game at all, or I'll let you know if you haven't, at the super rare tier, I forget if there's an actual name for it, but I just call them the super rares. There are 6 Elder Gods, which you will encounter in the first week, the first level. And then we have the essences, which you encounter in the second level, and then Metal, the Guardian, which you fight against in the first level at the very end, and you have access to it at the very end of the third level. But I also opened one in a pack while playing, which I didn't think that you would be able to do, but you can. So I will be rating all of these on the standard tier list scale, and let me add an F tier so that we have everything that we want. And the rating will be due to a variety of factors. Take into account how effective the card is when it's being used to its potential, how much counterplay there is to it, as well as how big of a cost it is. Because these super rare cards with the Elder Gods and Metal take up multiple slots in your spaceship. So remember, you've got 8 slots in your spaceship. All of your Elder Gods, they take up 2 slots. That means that one Elder God has to be doing the work of 2 separate aliens in order to really make up for its value. So if your opponent is able to play around them, that is pretty bad. And Metal takes up 3 slots. You don't really need to worry about using it. You only have access to it at the last part of level 3, which I'm almost done with. I haven't been able to finish level 3. I'm so close. But we'll just go over all of that. So let's start with the Elder Gods. So let me make sure I'm pronouncing their names correctly. We're going to start with Zerzyrix, which is, I usually just refer to them as like the colors. This is the red god. Whenever he wins or dies, kill a battalion in your opponent's spaceship and play a different battalion next turn of Able. All of the Elder Gods have play a different one next turn of Able clause. I am going to put this one in C tier or B tier. Basically, this is a very solid one. This is actually the first one that I got. I opened it in a pack, very luckily. And it's pretty good. Its ability is more consistent than some other gods in that it triggers if it wins or dies, which is pretty nice. And but the only issue is that it is really bad to ability stealers and ability negators, because if your opponent is able to negate that ability, then it can be really bad for you, because now you've wasted value and they might have stolen your ability. So, yeah, just, I don't know. I'm thinking if I want to move this down, but I think I'm probably going to keep it there at B tier. We'll see how I feel once I get more into the tier list. Next up, we have Uozdag Helm, which is our green guy. When this alien dies, if it's not your last battalion, return it to your spaceship. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a fan of this one. Not a fan. I'm going to probably put this in D tier. It is basically the closest that any of these get to just raw stats, in that it's just got raw stats. If it dies, it's coming back. If you're able to do that, it's great, but again, these Elder Gods, a lot of them have the issue that if your opponent is able to negate the ability, they are really bad. Or if they're able to use something like anything that before damage turns both of them into the lethal blobs or whatever, or is able to exchange control using the Putz lifter, I think, or whatever it is. That's really bad. Actually, I'm going to move red guy down a little bit because of that issue, in that these are not only susceptible to ability indicators, but they're also susceptible to other ones because their abilities don't trigger before damage. So yeah, that's going to move him down. Next up, we have Osham, which is like the heart dude. When he's played, the enemy loses its ability, and this gains it till end of turn, and this ability goes first. I'm going to be putting this up in A tier. This guy is great. First off, it doesn't fall to as many abilities as some of the other ones. There are some abilities which still cause it to trade evenly with a battalion, but it's a lot less. And the fact that it's stealing your opponent's ability while simultaneously removing it, and also that it's temporary. If your opponent plays an alien with a bad ability when you don't want, this will not permanently have it. It will keep its very good ability. So you don't have to worry about, like, getting a really crappy ability that you don't want. So that's why he's so high. His like upper potential is really dependent on how good your opponent's stuff is. I really like this guy when you're fighting against other elders because it's really good when you're fighting against other elders. Like basically all of the elders, if this is fighting against it, except maybe the green and red guy, which we'll get to later, he basically just wins and gets additional value at that. So I'm putting him at A tier because he's very, he's not, I wouldn't say he's versatile, but he's very hard to counteract. Then we're going to get to Karnus Live. And now this is probably the first Elder God that a lot of players see because Alan has it at the end of level 1. At the end of the first week of level 1. And I'm sure when much like other players, when they first face him, they're like, oh my god, how do I defeat this guy? What am I going to do? The thing is, he's actually pretty easy to counteract when you like realize that ability negators exist. And because of that, I don't know. Like, let's say, for example, you have this guy and you're fighting against either if you're fighting against Zir, the first guy, the red guy, they're going to fight each other. This guy's going to set Zir's power to 0, and then he's going to damage it, and then Zir just kills him back. Oh wait, no. Opponent's spaceship. Never mind. Can't kill it back, I don't believe. But still, you're going to get more value from it. And there's so much counterplay to it. I'm probably going to put it at D tier. Actually, I feel like this is better than the guy that comes back. I might move him up to B and keep him at C. Yeah, that looks about better. Okay, yeah. So, he's really effective if your opponent doesn't have any ability indicators, but your opponent having ability indicators can be really bad for this guy, because he kind of just does nothing at that point. Next up, we have one of my favorite gods, Iktik. When played, enemy battalion gets a bad ability. This ability goes first. The bad ability that he gives is that the alien with the ability gets -1, and the alien it's fighting gets +1 power. Its ability isn't super. I mean, its ability indicator, which is big, and this will always go positive against any of the other battalions because it's negating their ability, and it's also causing them to lose a power. So unlike the heart guy, Osham, he trades up against other elder gods. He doesn't gain their abilities like Osham does, but I'm going to put him at a similar level because they both serve very similar purposes of They're elders with ability negation. And because of that, they're up higher because they're good against other elders, or they're good just in general. I'm putting him behind Osham because I feel like usually stealing the opponent's ability is going to be better than just giving them like a bad one and not like being able to use it. So it's slightly lower, but the fact that it's a negator as an Elder God means it's up there. And again, all of this is just my opinion. Feel free to put in the comments if you've played what your opinions are. Next we have Yaudi Yatash, blue guy. When wins or dies, you gain control of the enemy battalion. This guy doesn't have as much flexibility as Zir, but I'm going to put him in a similar layer or level because getting control of battalions, very good. And while Zir does have the additional flexibility of being able to kill your opponent's elders in the backline, which is really good, and this guy can't do it, the ability to just steal your opponent's battalion is huge. Massive amount of value. It also triggers whether he wins or dies, so if his ability doesn't get negated, you're in business. I should also mention that these two gods in B tier, they trigger their death trigger if they die while they're on the bench, which is huge. The amount of times that has been important is pretty big. So that is going to be all of the Elder Gods. That's my ranking for all of them. Next, we're going up to the Essences. Now, the Essences are all very similar. They all have 4 power, which is not a lot. They have a +1 against one other type and a -2 against the last 2 types. And when they're played for the first time, this ability always goes first, not just goes first, always. That you generate a new random battalion of their type. And the power that these battalions have varies wildly in like their effect. So all of these guys are going to end up in the same tier. And I'm probably going to put them in C tier because while the ability your opponent, or the ability to like get another dude no matter what, is huge, at the same time these guys are really bad if your opponent has a win ability battalion, because they're almost certainly going to win, and because of that, it can be very dangerous to just give them a free win trigger, because there are some insane triggers on battalions when they win. And because of that, it's really tough to risk that. However, they do offer some good value when they do successfully proc, and your opponent isn't able to profit off of it. And especially because some of the randomly generated battalions, insanely good. But again, that's a sometimes, so it's give and take. And last we get to Metal. Now remember, Metal takes up 3 slots. It's a big chunker, alright? However, its ability is, first off, when you play it, you have to play a different battalion for the next 2 turns. So, having this guy makes your versatility of your entire team much less. Like, just really turns down the ability of your team to like have a versatile moveset of different battalions to move in, because he is taking up 3 of your slots, and you're only going to be able to play it every 3 turns. So, pretty dangerous. I will say, though, the abilities it does have are very good. So, if I'm remembering correctly, it cycles between 3 abilities. The first one, acts first, always, sets your opponent's strength to 0, removes all of their abilities, all their strengths, all their weaknesses, and turns them into a useless rock. That's pretty good. Next ability is it instantly kills your opponent's battalion. Doesn't even fight, just instantly kills them. And the last one is that it gains control of your opponent's battalion and sets its power to 9 and changes its name, which doesn't really do much. The last ability doesn't always act first, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, I think the last one is just a when played. But this guy is really tough because when you're able to just throw it out there every turn, it's amazing. But the problem is if your opponent is able to snipe it, well, first off, there's only a couple ways that you can really fight this guy. The 2 elders in A tier are able to defeat it if they are fighting it on the last of the 3 abilities. Then the Stealer God is able to steal it if you're on the 2nd ability. I don't think there's any counterplay against the first ability, but it's very, very difficult to counter. However, it is taking up 3 slots on your ship, and if your opponent is able to destroy it, with like Zir, for example, hitting the bench, it is very good. I'm actually going to move some of this. I'm going to move the guy that comes back and these guys down, because I think Zir is actually a higher tier than Karnas. Or Zir is higher than, what is his name? Godoy. I'm going to put Metal at C tier, simply because the amount that it hinders you, it could really damage your game plan. And if you lose Metal to an ability that's taking it out, you're kind of cooked. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the tier list. Thank you for watching. Comment if you have any suggestions. Wish me luck on finishing up level 3, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.